Do you know, it's just occurred to me, hello and welcome to the Comedy Slab podcast, obviously, but it's occurred to me that we do many, many voices and accents on this podcast as we slip into various colloquialisms, but I don't think we've ever ventured into Lancashire.
Lancashire? Now, that's an omission, surely.
We were just, before we started recording, we were just talking about it's gone all Hereford now.
Yes, ooh-ah.
We were just talking about the show that we're going to slab this time round, and that's kind of it's a Bolton, isn't it? It's like that kind of area.
Right, that's different to Burnley or Blackburn, and I don't know the difference, so I look like a right idiot.
You went on Somerset then. That sounded.
I probably did.
I don't know the difference.
I got 4 bears from Somerset, or was it 3 bears?
Like Goldilocks.
That's right.
Who was that? That's one more than Goldilocks, isn't it? Anyway.
Yeah.
Hello, and apologies to everybody listening to this in Lancashire. We are deeply, deeply sorry for our terrible efforts to try and replicate your accent. I'm sure there'll be more of it between now and the end of the podcast. I'm Shane O'Connor, he's Adrian Lesley, and each week we have a look at a comedy, we have a listen to a comedy, and we tell you what we think of it. And very often, as is the case these days, people join in. You can join in at home. Just sing along. You can have a go.
Sing along a Shane.
Sing along a Comedy Slab podcast. And we choose alternately, I should say, although it is a bit of an alternative lifestyle. We choose alternately, and it was my turn to choose this week. I did choose. Oddly enough, actually.
I did choose.
I did choose.
That's very good grammar, isn't it? I did choose.
It was really weird because it was only afterwards when I was just on my way up to bed after we recorded last week's Comedy Slab podcast. And I thought, that is a really freaky, weird thing to do, isn't it? Is to slab a sequel of a program that we've never looked at.
I'm more convinced even than you that it's a weird thing to do because you, I'm sure, were more across the Phoenix Nights, the precursor, were you not?
Not at all, really, but more than you.
Guess what? I think I've seen one as a Unitarian.
I've watched it all, but it was a very long time ago, so you'll have to bear with us if we get any of the Phoenix Nights references wrong or we miss them. But yeah, so it's the sequel to Phoenix Nights, Max and Paddy's Road to Nowhere, the 2 doormen from Phoenix Nights, played by Peter Kay and Paddy McGuinness. We'll be able to look at that. First of all, we do that comedy news we've got for you this week, as we always do. We'll be playing you some clips, by the way, as well, and giving it a score at the end. We'll give it 5 each, which will amalgamate into a score out of 10. Comedy news this week, though.
You sounded like you decided already, without us doing the show, that you're going to we each give it 5.
We each give it a score out of 5, I should say.
Well, that's what you should have said.
Well, maybe we'll each give it 5. Who knows?
It might do.
It's never happened yet, has it?
No. Anyway, is this me, the comedy news?
159 episodes in, it's never happened yet, has it? There you go. Yes, if you like. Yes. Do you want to do comedy news us up?
I do indeed. Although, didn't one of us give a 5 once in the very early days?
We've never both given it a 5.
No, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, that's what I meant. But yeah.
We're unlike a certain Strictly Come Dancing, where there has been a full array of, back in the day, 4 10s out of 10, and then 3 10s out of 10, which was the adapted version last year in the pandemic.
Am I in the right podcast here? We just started talking about Strictly Come Dancing, which you know way too much about, by the way, can I just say at this particular point?
Well, I was, and indeed, to some extent, still am married to a Strictly Come Dance addict, or she was at one stage. So I had to pretend that I was watching under duress, but actually I secretly enjoyed it. But you can't admit that. But there was a lot of G&T being swilled around the time of transmission. Anyway, one of your, someone we have put on the slab, as 'twere, in at least one show, not the one show, Back was the title of the show. 2 shows, because we've done Peep Show.
We did Peep Show as well, didn't we?
Yeah, so we are, of course, you could narrow it down to 2 people by what I've just said, probably, but it's Robert Webb we're talking about. And if you know your Strictly announcements, he's Strictly had an announcement just this past week as we speak that he is in Strictly Come Dancing's 2021 lineup. And if you're listening in the States or some other countries, you may know the show as Dancing with the Stars.
Although don't they get? I think they will. What's BBC America? I think is BBC America still going?
Well, it may not be called that. I can't remember if it is, but there's certainly there is an equivalent, I believe,
Right.
because there's a big production base now, or bigger than it ever was, of BBC in LA. I think.
I think there is a bit of a market or an appetite to show British programmes on TV over in the States, isn't there? Because I know I've seen stuff over there, so they may well get the original. Do you know? I have to say, I'm not a big fan of Strictly Come Dancing, as you probably could have gathered without.
I would have guessed, even if you hadn't sort of appeared to sneer at it right now.
Yeah, it wouldn't have taken the brains of an archbishop, would it? Really? But do you know? There's part of me that hates it when people who you kind of hold in high regard for their work. And I'm going to say it, and you'll probably take issue with it, lower themselves to do this kind of rubbish, really. And
are you talking specifically of, because we're on the comedy slab here, are you talking about comedians particularly going into
it tends to be the only people that, I'm just trying to think if a serious actor has done it as well, but I mean, the other buffoons that are on there are kind of known for their buffoonery prior to going on to that, aren't they? You know what I mean? So it's not such an...
What, Anne Widdecombe are we talking about?
I haven't got any lawyers on my side at all. So, Anne, if you're listening, that was Adrian. All right, I don't.
It was a juxtaposition, but I think we can get away with it. I mean, we could go down another comedy news alley, because in the past week it's been revealed that she and Anton Dubek were lined up for a possible sitcom. Did you see that in the week?
I saw this.
I had to check the date wasn't April the 1st, for goodness sakes.
What was the idea with that? Was that?
Apparently it was serious because they had a writer on board.
It was going to be scripted.
Yeah, a sitcom.
Right, okay.
Sitcom in front of a live studio audience.
Doesn't that somewhat kind of make it a bit defeat the point? The point of like somebody like Anne Widdecombe, she's a
joke, are you saying?
Well, no, he's her ability to say things that you wouldn't expect. It's the spontaneity, isn't it, that is part.
Well, yeah, but it's like sincerity. You can fake spontaneity.
Yeah,
I mean, I wrote that line 2 hours ago. I thought I'll just see if I can work it in, and ka-ching.
That worked well, didn't it?
It did, as did your laugh, which was utterly sincere.
Yeah.
And not pre-recorded.
Not at all, no. Week last Wednesday I recorded that laugh. That was
one of your better ones.
That was when you fell down the stairs, if you remember. That was hysterical.
Historical as well.
Do you have any? You don't have those feelings then about when you see some, a young man like Robert Webb who, and I must admit, there's more of his work to come that I'd like to put on the comedy slab. Something that he did without David Mitchell would be something that's definitely on my list. But a young man who has got, proven hitherto comedic talents, and he's doing. Why are you doing this? Is what you want to say.
Well, you might want to say.
I want to say.
No, I don't. I don't look down my nose. I think, and I bet. Well, look, you're not that sympathetic to the dance show, so park that. But if you did like the show and you were then approached by your agent who'd been approached by the BBC to do that, I mean, there's people who would bite your arm off to do it. And I can see that, because you'd go for it if you liked the show, if you thought you had at least a chance, or it's a gig apart from anything else. You don't have to be the world's best dancer, but some people go in with it to play it for laughs, and some take it terribly seriously.
I mean, he's got a previous on this score, hasn't he, as well? Because he did that comic relief, dancing comic relief thing, where he made an exhibition of himself in a leotard. And
well, come on, but that's what comedians do.
Yeah, I don't know. There's something about this, and I'm trying to figure out what it is in my mind that's not wired properly, that really has great disdain for him to do that. And then when he's at the end of that Mitchell and Webb thing, dancing dressed as a banana, that he did at the end of every episode, I don't know. I didn't have a problem with it. I don't know. It's contextual. I don't know.
Subtextual, maybe. But I mean, I think it stems from you lacking any liking for any human feelings whatsoever, but no, any liking for the show. Although immediately I think, well, your wife is in the dance business, so it's not like you don't rate dance.
Come on, she's a stripper, just say it.
I thought I'd let you say that rather than me, and you could talk to her lawyers, who are considerably better and more expensive than yours.
You don't feel any disdain at all. You don't. There's nothing. You're quite happy with it, are you?
No, because I think it's a fine show. It's really well produced. It's very popular, and it's another branch of entertainment. Let's not kid ourselves that comedians are really a breed apart from entertainment. Even Bill Hicks had to confess, and he was, of his day, like him or loathe him, he was seen as by people who did like him at least, a cool act. Aloof from, he didn't do commercials, but like Ben Elton's never done an ad, I'm told.
But I mean, you wouldn't see Ben Elton doing it, would you? Is that's the point I'm making, isn't it? And you wouldn't see Bill Hicks going if he was still alive, obviously.
Oh no, but even Bill Hicks had to confess that what he was in was a branch of showbiz. I mean, how could he not? He's an entertainer, making people laugh. You can dress it up how you want. I think, he might have been one of those people, if he'd lived, he could have ended up a politician in his 50s. We'll never know.
If he'd have lived long enough and played his cards right, he could have been on Celebrity Squares.
He could have been on Play Your Cards Right.
Yeah.
Bad, predictable minds think alike.
All right. Well, that's the comedy news, and it's quite obvious from the comedy news yet again that it's me that's the problem, not the solution. And I'm quite happy. I'm quite happy with that. Let's have a look, shall we? Before we head off to old Clipland and find out a little bit, or have a listen to a little bit of Max and Paddy's Road to Nowhere, as is the way that we normally do these things. It's incumbent upon me to ask you. And I think I know the answer. We've kind of touched on this already, but you were aware of this, but not seen it at all, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I can't remember how I reacted last week. Remind me so I can be consistent.
You went
like that,
yeah,
just like that.
Very Scooby Doo. I don't know what was going on there. We'd have got away with it too if it hadn't been for you meddling kids.
You pesky Shane there in the Midlands.
Yeah.
I really respect Peter Kay as a stand-up. I've seen his probably one of his best-known shows at Channel 4, or Channel 4 put it out. I think they put it out a second time, got a massively improved audience second time round. Was it at the Manchester Arena or SEC? No, not SECC. I've forgotten the name. But anyway, he liked playing the biggest venue closest to home to him, not exactly on his doorstep, but... the famous thing, my biscuits gone in my bread. Do you remember that? Or garlic bread, or it's spitting.
You see, but we'll talk about this some more, I'm sure. I've never been a fan of his stand-up. I always think the people who quote his stand-up generally, and you're the exception that proves the rule, obviously.
We'll see. Depends how you finish this sentence.
But the people I always encounter who quote Peter Kay are the people... normally that I count amongst the least humorous in humanity.
No, I think I tick the box with that.
Honestly, I do, and I think you don't understand, but you've just heard everybody else say it, and now you kind of that's his least favourite end from me of his work, really. But
right,
so there we go.
So be it. But I did see one of Phoenix Nights. I didn't really get that. Let's say I prefer the stand-up to Phoenix Nights. It sounds like you're the other way around.
You see, years ago, I was in a band we played some social clubs.
Were they called Creme Brulee?
And no, it's a shit business. I think you've got to see that to believe. I remember I had a mate of mine as a bass player, Simon, and we played this club. And he sat down. We just set the gear up and everything. And he sat down, and somebody came over and said, "Don't sit there, mate." And he said, "Why?" And he said, "Because that's so and so's seat." And he went, "What?"
Sat there for the last 35 years.
And they said he's been coming in for 30 or 40 years or whatever, and that's where he sits. And afterwards, he said to me, "They've been coming here on a Saturday night for 35, 40 years, and they don't even sit in a different seat." And that's. So you've got to kind of, it was an insight into a world that unless you've seen it, you probably wouldn't believe it, to be honest with you, but there you are. Anyway, should we have a clip and have a listen?
Let's do it.
All right. Max and Paddy, They are, as we say, the bouncers from Phoenix Nights. And at the end of Phoenix Nights, we see that they go off into the distance. They're going to go off together in a camper van. Their camper van now pulls up at what looks like a dockyard, container base, something of that description, some kind of nondescript car park. To do as we find out as things unfold, to do a bit of shopping from the back of a lorry.
I thought you said it were a shop.
It is.
Oh, yes.
Bloody hell.
Hello, boys. Welcome to Gypsy Joe's. See anything you like, boys?
Do we?
Got some great bargains, boys. Stereo speakers. Buy one, get one free. Cash down, nothing to pay in 12 months.
And is it all?
Oh, it's all,
Have you got any of them big tellies?
I've got a beautiful 32-inch Futaba back there. Fast text, widescreen, perfect for the families.
Hey, what we'll be watching won't be for the families, my friend. You know what I'm saying? 2 grown men away from home.
Hey, you can forget that. We won't be watching any of your filth on it, that's for sure. Have you got any plasma screens?
Plasma screens? Oh, very tricky to get hold of them plasmas. I used to have some, but... Hang on a minute. You might just be in luck. I think I know where I can get one. I'll need your help.
And thereby is the setup for the show, and much hilarity ensues. Now, you'd think after 159 shows, I would now be ready with a headline, wouldn't you?
Mm.
Yeah. Well, think on. Dream on.
And then you go, I've only got the 3. I can only manage 3.
No. I've had quite a good run of remembering, but this is not part of that run, unfortunately. The end of the season was last week, where I remembered to do the headlines. But as it is, I'll say something like, it's not Max, but it's not Min either.
No, I like that. It's good, that's good.
Dug myself out of a very huge hole I'd already created.
He wrote that 4 days ago. And wrote
But
it.
you wrote that 5 days ago.
And he wrote it on lipstick on the mirror
On a pig.
in his bedroom. Oh. Yeah. So there are so many questions that need answering with that statement. Okay. Yeah, middle of the road then, really, I suppose.
Look, who's doing the headline writer? I should have outsourced it to you.
Can I just ask you? Did you, Gypsy Joe, who was selling them the TV or trying to sell them a TV? Did you recognise him?
No, but now you've said that, of course, the brain's wearing 19 to the dozen, and I suppose he's sort of vaguely familiar in a vaguely familiar kind of way.
Yeah,
but I can't name him. Or does he play an Irish character in what you're thinking that I do know him or should know him in?
Oh, yes.
Because I recognise the voice more than the face, to be
honest. Well,
honest.
you would. In fairness, yes, that's a good reason for that. You probably wouldn't recognise him in men's clothes either.
Right, okay. Either I've had a Turkish sauna with him or we've put something of his on the slab, if you'll pardon the expression.
Neither. Well, I don't think so. I'm not sure.
A radio show?
No, BBC One.
It's talking like that. It's
mainstream, BBC One, wearing a dress.
Hang on, are we talking about Strictly Come Dancing again?
Shall I tell you? I'll put you out of your misery.
Yeah, please.
His name is Brendan O'Carroll, and his creation is Mrs. Brown.
Oh.
As in Mrs. Brown's Boys.
Oh, don't I look silly. And that was him before Mrs. Brown.
Well, before
2004-ish.
Yeah. Well, I think he's been doing Mrs. Brown. I think he's been doing that for quite a while, but not on TV. I'm not sure whether he did it on RTE, but I think he was doing it a while before it came across to the BBC. But yeah, that's Brendan O'Carroll there playing the spiv who gets the TVs and the rest of the stuff as well.
Wow.
But there you go. Come on then. Why middling? Why middle of the road? Why Max but not Min?
It's just not really my tasse to tay, as they say in France, although with a French accent.
I didn't know you had one.
Look, what I respect, let's start with positives. I really like the structure of the story. It's a very pleasing shape to the story. It's a satisfying end. We're not going to blow it, and we try not to issue any more, I've nearly said disclaimers then, any more spoilers than is absolutely necessary. there's a beautiful symmetry to it, actually, like a nice, I don't know, a Gothic cathedral or something. I'm way out of my comfort zone, both with architecture and indeed when it comes to television criticism. But it's still, I could see it clearly enough, even though I'm not madly in love with it, that I really respect that. Nicely shaped. And if you liked that kind of show, I think it's a very good example of it. It's not really my thing. I'm slightly concerned about, and this is where, well, no, I think it's a reasonable thing to raise whatever. It's perfectly reasonable to think that if you're writing this show, there will be people watching, particularly episode 1, who've never seen Phoenix Nights.
Right.
And I think it starts with too much knowledge assumed. There's an aerial shot of a container ship. We're at a port. Lovely, powerful shot. But I'm thinking, my brain's working away and I'm thinking, well, this is series 1, episode 1. So have they been working on a ship and they've jumped ship, as it were? You see, I'm trying to fill in all the gaps which are there. I know you said last week, but I always forget what you said because, frankly, who listens to you anyway?
Exactly, yeah.
But certainly not your wife and certainly not me. And you'd said about them being bouncers, hadn't you? So that's what they were in at the nightclub. But once I sit down to watch it, it's a bit like being a judge, being presented the evidence, and what you direct your jury. You forget anything you've heard before the case, and you judge it purely on what you hear and see in the courtroom. And like me, it's purely on what I hear and see on the TV show. Unless I do happen to know loads of previous episodes or related stuff and so on.
It's interesting you say that because I can't really claim any more specialist knowledge. As I say, I've watched the whole of the 2 series of Phoenix Nights, but years ago. I mean, I couldn't really tell you very much other than Peter Kay plays his main character. He's the guy in a wheelchair who runs the club. And other than that, it's all a little bit hazy and a little bit. And I thought quite the opposite from you, actually. I'd said to you before about this thing that I've got about, Paddy turning to Max and go, "Well, Max, here we are at the docks to come and meet so and so who's going to sell us a TV so that we can have it for the camper van, so that later on in the show this is going to happen, and then we'll make sure that." And you think, who talks like that? I thought it unfolded beautifully. I thought I would have given it extra points for that. Was that it gently guided you through, and I think probably the reason that you felt like you did, I thought, was because it was over a much greater time. The writing was over a much greater time throughout the episode to explain all the things. So if you didn't pick them up, then I could understand why you might be scratching your head and thinking, "Well, I'm not really quite sure now. Who's this?" And because I'd missed that bit, or you know what I mean.
But I can only describe it how it is, and of course, it turns out not only do we not agree on at least half the shows we slab, but we don't agree on the very details within all those shows.
No,
I must be more impatient than you. I'm sure stuff's sped up over the years because I know with the proliferation of TV companies, those same TV companies and particularly commissioning ones are really nervous that you've got to grab people in the first 5 minutes, otherwise they're off. They've got too much choice.
Yeah.
And they don't even have to go to another TV show. They can go to YouTube, as we know, or they can go and play on their Xbox or go for a swim or a gym, whatever it is.
Interesting. I mean, the pace of the whole thing, and I felt it a bit later on in the episode. There's a quite a protracted scene where they are. Well, it's supposed to be that Paddy's teaching Max to dance. And, in a kind of a la Dirty Dancing sort of way. And I thought, I went back and I had to spin back and time it because I thought this is and it was 3 minutes, the whole thing.
Wow, that is quite long in TV minutes.
On a music bed, and nothing being said. It was all visual. It was all kind of at their own pace as well. And and like you say, you think, well, they've got some cojones to do that, to be able to say, well, actually, the 3 minutes, either that or they've got enough not dialogue.
not written enough words.
Yeah, and
but 3 minutes is over 10% of the show, which is incredible.
Exactly.
As a stat,
Just to have that. Did that drag for you? That's because that was what initially, and I thought, oh, how much longer have we got this to go on for? And then I had to spin back just to time it, just to see what it was. Did you not feel that at all, or
did I feel it dragged? Well, I don't. I think my mind probably wandered off as it does. But related to the show, it gave me some time to digest what I'd seen thus far. I don't know, because I wasn't that sympathetic to the show, so I wasn't getting into the finer points of this drags, this should be quicker. It's I don't know if I even believe in him, the Paddy character, also the name of the actor, teaching Max to dance.
Right.
If you're sympathetic to the show, you kind of buy all those things, and you stop worrying about, well, would this happen in the real world?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
You see, I mean, Paddy McGuinness is another example of the James Corden syndrome, where on TV he does that terrible program where
it's a dating show.
Yes, it's like a kind of blind date on acid thing, and yet in this, I thought, what a great actor. Now he might have only been playing himself, but then a lot of soap actors have got away with that for 80 years odd, but. I can't, you look at it and you think it's almost a waste him doing that because he has the ability to do something. I thought the Paddy. You see, I like both of them, and I like the interaction. I like their relationship, and I like the way that they responded to each other. Even though I thought that the Peter Kay he always strikes me as quite an old-fashioned comedian. And I thought, like, the characters, the way that he writes, the character, his character Max, how very dare you, or something, or how dare you, or something like that. How dare you, doesn't he?
How dare you?
Says it about 3 or 4 times in the show.
Right.
It's a kind of an old-fashioned sort of way about him. But I like you didn't they didn't gel for you. Did you like the characters or?
No, well, let's talk about Max just before we do, and before we forget, and the law gets onto us talking as I was possibly talking of judges as I was earlier. Production credits: a Phil McIntyre television production, and jointly, I think, with a Goodnight Vienna production. Yeah. And you were telling me before we hit record that's Mr. Kay's company with his wife, did you say?
Yes, Susan. Peter and Susan Kay own and run Goodnight Vienna. They're the only directors, actually. Phil McIntyre, interestingly enough, huge in the business.
He's a promoter, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a promoter, isn't he? Alan Partridge. These are the things he's got coming up. He's promoting Alan Partridge tour in 2022. A Ben Elton tour, which either should have happened in 2020 or will happen sometime later. And he's also promoting the tours for Bill Bailey and Milton Jones, amongst others. So, still very active on the comedy scene and promoting, big name acts there.
Yeah.
So he's got some backing, hasn't he, Peter Kay? But like I say, this is a guy who, a bit like Lee Evans, when he wants to do a stand-up tour, goes out and plays. He doesn't find a club. He goes and finds an arena to play in.
Yeah, absolutely, or a stadium. Yeah,
that's the pull of the guy, isn't it? Really. So you can't knock it in that sense.
No, very successful. Anyway, let's come back to the character Max.
Yeah,
I just wanted to say, you were talking about him being old-fashioned, and if you consider it old-fashioned, he's quite. Whereas Paddy, we heard in the first clip. We'll have another audio clip in a sec, of course, but. In the first clip, we heard that, shall we say, Paddy wasn't planning to watch Songs of Praise on this widescreen TV or the big plasma screen. But Max says, words to the effect, we'll not have that here, that sort of thing. We won't have any filth. I felt that needed expanding. Such people exist, of course, but would they go on a road trip with someone they're diametrically opposed to in that sort of thing? Which might hint, and this is where I think the character was underdrawn. That's my gut feeling. And I hope it's just not the fact that I couldn't buy into the show that I'm getting super critical. But I thought, well, that needs unpacking. Why is he anti-porn? What is he doing with a guy who's very much pro that, pro good time, pro dating and doing more with women, all of that, etc.? It's sounding like there might be some religious thing there. There's no way of knowing because it's not referred to. there's no reference to his upbringing or either of their upbringings. Do you see what I mean? It's a bit superficial, isn't it? It was a real opportunity. You take them out of the previous series, the Phoenix Nights. Right, we can start not quite with a clean slate because they're it's continuity of character, but we can flesh them out. But this opportunity was missed, I feel.
I don't know if he's just prudish. I mean, that's just and then so it's set up as it's diametrically opposed, so that Paddy's a randy little devil, and and Max is the prude that sits there with his arm folded. And in fact, in later scenes, that's more or less kind of what we see, isn't it? Is that he's all very embarrassed about sex and. He's not.
It's a classic dramatic device. Nothing wrong with it it's a classic protagonist and antagonist, the tension of opposites. But we don't know why they are that way. And I think we should be interested because
it was only the first episode of 6, wasn't it? I mean, I haven't seen the others, so I can't tell you whether they do expand on that. But you've been a bit tough on them after.
Well, I do have high standards.
27 minutes.
Although I do work with you, so I'm conflicted as well.
Ever since you went on that speed dating thing, it's all been instant gratification with you. You're part of that generation, aren't you now?
Absolutely, yeah.
You're part of the instant thrill brigade now. So I better give you another clip then, otherwise you'll be.
You better have, otherwise I'll lose interest.
You'll be off. You go and see another podcast behind my back.
I will.
All right then. Max and Paddy have been desperately trying to pull, and they hit on the idea of dressing in sailors because they've been in this nightclub, and they've seen that a lot of sailors have been on shore leave. And have been frequenting these nightclubs, so they think, well, that's it. They'll get sort of dressed up as sailors, and they're bound to pull. Max's chat-up lines work amazingly, and again, he's the one who Paddy has a go, and he doesn't do very well at chatting up the ladies with his cheesy lines. So Max has a sincere approach, and that seems to work much to both their amazement. And they take a couple of young ladies back to their camper van.
Who lives here then?
We do. Just for tonight. Well, we've got shore leave.
Oh, yes, the old shore leave, batten down the hatches and all that.
It belongs to a mate of ours. Lets us stop here, just somewhere to lay our head,
Hey, or wherever else we fancy laying. Oh, in you get, you two.
Home sweet home. Sorry about the mess. The lad who owns it's a bit of a pig. Me casser, you Sue casser.
Hey, yeah. Now then, you two get settled, and I'm going to give this little lady here a tour of the vessel. This is the front room. That's my room. Tour over.
Drink?
Permission to come aboard?
He's a case, isn't he? Crackers, that lad. That wind's got up. So, do you work like? Have you got a job?
I'm a checkout supervisor.
Checkout supervisor? Really? Amazing. I bet you know some stories, don't you? Please God.
I'm Paddy the Sailor Man.
He's puddled that lad, isn't he? He's a kid.
I bet you've got a girl in every port.
Oh no, I'm very choosy when it comes to women. I'm not like that animal.
Yeah, so what kind of animal is he? Well, I suppose he could be a contradiction, could be one of those people, those many people who appear to be really confident when it comes down to it. I mean, Paddy was very confident, as you said, in the setting the scene there. Very confident with his chat-up lines and scored precisely 0. We hear a noise there, and I should just say I don't think they would do it in this age of #MeToo. Paddy pushes the woman he's scored with, apparently, into his room. But fortunately, it's counteracted by him saying permission to come aboard, which I think, thank God that was there. Otherwise, you'd be thinking, is she there by choice?
The old romantic, yeah. Although
other things ensue which we won't ruin, but
yeah,
what did you want to say?
I was just going to say, although it does turn out that the two ladies are referred to as the Belgrano sisters. I tell you what I did like. I don't know if you noticed it, and I didn't notice it watching it. It was only when I was looking up some details on the Internet Movie Database that I realised that Peter Kay's character Max is actually, his full name is Max Bygraves. Did you notice that?
No, I didn't.
I found a bit of it a little bit kind of juvenile and a bit childish. And then other times I thought, I could go with that. You know, it kind of was a bit of a roller coaster for me. But what about this whole idea of a premise for a sitcom that you got a camper van, and I presume that what happens is that as it goes through the series, because I can't remember for the life of me, that they head off to different destinations and encounter different people. I mean, the whole world goes past you right outside your front door. I think it's a great premise for a sitcom, is what I'm trying to say in a long-winded way.
Absolutely, yeah. Equally, it would be a good premise for a serious drama. I mean, it's the journey of life, isn't it? The metaphor, but it's also, things are ready-made in front of you.
There's the bit where he falls onto the pipe and his voice goes high, and
that was a bit. Now that is getting surreal, isn't it, or a bit fantastical, because the voice was treated.
Yeah.
Very obviously, in my view.
I quite like that, you see. I think.
Did you? So, but that took me out of the scene. That made me think, they've treated this.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not to believe it's quite as I'm seeing it.
Right.
But that's the kind of dullard I am.
No, but
regular listeners know.
You're right, though. You kind of you do. So, well, how have they done that? What have they done? Oh, is that digital? Is that has been done in post? Oh, okay. And then by the time you finish, the adverts are on. Talking about adverts as well, did you like Lisa Tarbuck at the start doing the Chorley FM adverts? Did you say that?
I didn't recognise the voice, but where the listener comes first.
Yeah.
And I thought we've worked in radio stations where the listener comes last.
Well, yeah, exactly. And the other thing with Chorley FM, they had another strapline that Peter Kay wrote from Chorley FM, coming in your ears. Which again,
well, it's back to juvenile, I would say.
Well,
but
and not least the fact that there's a real life Chorley FM, which is
is there?
Yeah, it's an RSL, I think, a restricted license, and they operate in Chorley, as you would imagine, and they're run by local volunteers. And they got into a real row with Peter Kay about this. They were really unhappy that he'd chosen Chorley
I'd
FM.
have just taken the publicity and run myself.
Yeah.
He gave them a national stage they couldn't possibly have had otherwise. Although part of me sympathising with them. I imagine they couldn't afford the legal fees. So all you can do is go to your local paper and complain.
And complain a bit, yeah, really. But they're closed now. I think they're closed in 2019. So it's not an issue. But I think I might be right in saying, I don't know, that's the radio station he has on when he's, he does Peter Kay's car share. Is it car share or carpool or something, or whatever?
One of the two, I think. Yes.
And I think that's the radio station that they have on when they're in the car. Right. So
but also, didn't he purport supposedly they were the sponsors of his stand-up show?
Well, okay.
Which is nice. It's a nice conceit, but that's going back a few years when the station would have actually been a real one.
Yeah,
I mean it's a bit lacking in imagination, but maybe they deliberately chose it.
I think what happened was he picked it first, and then they started as an RSL. I think that's what happened, and then obviously they closed after that. But
well, they thought we're Chorley, we're on FM. Let's call ourselves Chorley FM.
Chorley FM, yeah. It does what it says on the tin of Bob's Beans, doesn't it? Really, but there you are.
It does indeed.
Yeah, I don't. So you're not feeling the love at all. I mean, the characters, and we always say this: the main characters, you didn't warm to them at all.
I won't say not at all. But a little, but not enough to. No one will be shocked who's a regular listener. Not enough to go and investigate any other episodes. I'm afraid.
Do you think they were believable? Because that was one of the things that I quite liked about them. Was I thought, and I there's part of me, and I can't really place where from, but I do feel like I've met people like that previously.
Oh, I'm sure they're out there. Yeah, they didn't seem too fantastical. Funny you should use that phrase. And sorry, I've belatedly seen in my notes, coming back to the dancing, which we should keep mentioning, but yeah. I'd actually written down at the time, second viewing this would have been, do we believe the dancing?
Okay.
Which kind of hints the fact that my answer would be no.
Yeah.
But do we believe in them? Yes. With the previous provisos about do we believe that those different characters would want to be in a camper van together for some indefinite period of time. Not sure about that.
Okay, well, I guess it's brought us to the time that we normally dread or love, depending on how the conversation has gone. I'm not really quite sure this week. Do you want to go first, or shall I?
You go first, my friend.
Okay, for me, I
thought it was going to be 4.
No,
you tease.
I think it's going to be a 3. It's above halfway, certainly. A bit too much reliance on physicality for me. I thought, it's pushing each other around again and stuff like that. And I would have liked to have heard more dialogue, and I would have got rid of the dancing scene almost completely, to be honest with you, because that was 3 minutes that they could have been doing something great.
Yeah. Anyway, my problem is that it is as I feared. I decided in advance I was going to give it 3, but it is, as I've just said, that 3 is not that generous for me because my default is 3.5. But for you, you're thinking, it's over half marks. Aren't I the generous one? So, but if we both give it the same score, but appear to like it in vastly different degrees, is there a problem with the credibility of our scoring? And do we need to go back and score all the 158 previous shows again?
I don't think so. I mean, you can only score it against your own criteria, can't you? And you have 5 points to play with, and that's, I mean, it gets no more complicated than that, does it really? I mean,
Right, you want me to set some homework for next week, no doubt.
Well, that'd be awfully nice. Awfully nice, as John Lemaitre once said. It'd be awfully lovely.
Well, there I was in the car with the lovely Alison and my girlfriend, and not my girlfriend. She is my girlfriend. There weren't 3 of us. Anyway. You're writing your own story, listeners. It's not quite that exotic. But we just had the radio on, as you do, and we had it on Radio 4 because that's the type of people we are. And I wasn't even consciously thinking it was time for a comedy show. It was Sunday evening, and I often forget there's a comedy show, I think it goes out from 7:15 to 7:45. And I sort of had it on in the background, talking to Alison, and then over time I started to tune in because I can't tune out other voices really,
right?
Particularly when it's comedy. And it was a stand-up comedian, name of Alan Cochrane, and the show is called, and he uses the phrase more than once, and it's probably that phrase that caught my ear: centrist dad. And as it went on, I started to think, I know someone who I think would like this, and he is a slightly right of centrist dad. And this is my gift to you for next week, Shane.
Okay.
But as ever, I have no idea really what you're going to make of it. I think you might like it more than you dislike it. I hope that.
I like the way you paused when you said, "What's the guy's name? Alan Cochrane, is it?"
Yeah.
You went Alan Cochrane and paused for me to go, "Oh yes."
And you hadn't heard of him.
I've never come
I think I would have likewise gone.
Yeah. Scooby Doo again. Okay, so it's Alan Cochrane, and it's called
Centrist Dad. It's actually Centrist Dad? ? You find it on BBC Sounds. It was, as I say, it was on Radio 4. It probably gets the odd repeat on 4 Extra with a bit of luck. And also, I mean, he's actually been going some time as a stand-up, so you should find, even if you're outside the UK perhaps, and you're really struggling to find BBC stuff, I'm sure he's out there on the YouTube somehow.
Thank you very much for your company. We have appreciated it this week. I don't sound like I think that, though, do I? It's really weird.
No, you made, well, that sounds like we haven't appreciated them on other weeks.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. Thank you very much for your
you sound sarcastic.
Come and see us next time. Don't forget there are 158 episodes before this one that you can go back and have a listen and a titter to. Hopefully, you have a titter from time to time, and you can catch us on all the podcast outlets. I think we're pretty well there, most all of them. Although for some reason Spotify seems to be hugely popular, but Apple Podcasts and et al. Are also our home. But we originate from Spreaker. If you want to go and catch us there.
You haven't mentioned the YouTube, but hopefully we're on that as well.
We are,
yeah. With added pictures, although not the most exciting ones.
An added picture.
Okay, and doesn't it morph slowly and subtly?
The background,
in the background.
the background twinkles about a bit, but it is an added picture.
Yes, and quite the most unflattering photo of either of us or both of us. I don't know how you managed that, but and he's doctored it to make it look even more unflattering. If that wasn't bad enough. Anyway. It falls to me to mention anti-social media. We're on Twitter at Comedy Slab. That's also our Facebook page handle at Comedy Slab. If you could like us on the latter and follow us on the former. And I've been tweeting out what I think are some nice entertaining things. For instance, in the past week, The Anatomy of a Gag by Jerry Seinfeld. Oh, wow. How he actually sits down and indeed mentions Larry David in passing, as you would, co-writer on Seinfeld, and how they hammer out a gag. And if you're in that trade particularly, that will be of interest.
So, from Max Bygraves and Paddy O'Shea, Shane O'Connor and Adrian Lesley, until next time, I think we really need to brush up on our Lancashire accents, mate. You know, we've got to start talking a bit like that. It's a bit, now you were saying that it's like Burnley.